Any idea when you think you picked it up?
I have no idea. I don't know.
You've already given this to us once way back when.
I did go to the,
I gotta sign in the PDF to do
I
it.
would have had to pick it up during the week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I would have had to, because I kind of had a little bit of sniffles Saturday night. And then Sunday, I had like a runny nose, and I tested it. I was
How far
negative.
did you want to go?
Call the regular town council meeting Monday, March 11th, 2024.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Audrey?
They'll disappear. Oh, okay. Mike Joseph?
Here.
Dale Macklin?
Here.
Fran Hudson?
Here.
Ray Karen?
We're here.
Adam Lint?
Here.
Lee Trahan?
Here.
And Jeff West?
Here.
Is there any conflicts of interest this evening? None? Approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, February 26, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Okay, Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Adam Lent,
Yes.
Lee Trahan,
Yes.
and Jeff West.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, on to communications. We have a presentation from Wright Pierce on the Sunset Heights project.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Wingard. I work for Wright Pierce Engineers. I work out of our Portland office, and I have with me Nate Edwards. He's the lead project engineer on this work and the work we've been doing so far with Paul. What I'm going to do is give a brief introduction to what we're calling the Sunset Heights Rehabilitation Project. And you should see a outline of the presentation on the next slide, which talks through the project location, where we're going to be focusing the potential work, the need for the project. Why are we doing this work? Some of the construction limits, where are we focusing the work, and then phasing and funding. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of the project location information. So if you could back up a few slides, you can see the entire project area for Sunset Heights. You can see Augusta Road there kind of on the left-hand side. You head up Gale Street into the Sunset Heights project area. And on the opposite side would be kind of Cushman Road, but I think we're stopping short of that and just focusing on Joe Avenue. And then we have Hemlock sort of to the south there. So those are the project extents that you can see in orange. And what I wanted to do is talk about the reason for the project and why we're targeting this area for improvements. And I would say that we're looking at three things that really are driving the project. And the first thing is the sewer. The sewer in the project area is fairly old. It's, I believe, original to the original construction of that Sunset Heights area. So if that area was constructed 1950 or 1960, we're talking about 75 years or so that sewer has been in the ground. That particular pipe that's in the ground is a clay pipe, and that pipe usually has a useful life of about 50 or 60 years. So we're at the end and have exceeded the useful life of that sewer. We've included some photos of what the sewer looks like. We had some CCTV, closed circuit TV taken of the sewer in that area. And the things that we look for, broken pipes or collapsed pipes, offset joints that kind of impede flow, root intrusions are another big thing that you would see in this area. So definitely one of the drivers of the project is to replace the sewer. The next driver, which I think is one of the more important drivers, is the stormwater. And if you've been out there during any significant rain event or even during non-significant rain events, you'll see that a lot of ponding is occurring, a lot of overland and what we call runoff is going down the roadways and not getting into catch basins. Very few catch basins in the project area. So this project would aim to increase the number of catch basins. And whenever you have situations where there's not controlled stormwater, you have a lot of icing conditions that occur during the winter, which is very unsafe to have. And the other thing we've noticed when we've been out there and doing some of the preliminary assessments of the existing system, the pipes that are in the ground and the pipes that are accepting water are still severely undersized. So I forget the level of service that we anticipated for the existing system, but today we like to design to like what we call a 10-year storm, so a storm that happens once every 10 years. These pipes in this system we'd be lucky to get a 1-year level of service, so the capacity is severely limiting in the project area. The third thing, which is something that most of you have probably seen and maybe the focus of a lot of the public comment, is the roadway conditions. The roadway conditions out there are pretty poor. I don't think they can stand too many more winters with plows on them and whatever else is being done up there. But severe alligator cracking throughout the site. One of the things that's contributing to that is we don't think there's a very good gravel base material underneath the roadway. So that's contributing to some failure of the pavement. There's not a good under drain system underneath the roadway, so that's also contributing to some of the frost heaving that you might be seeing through that area. So the roadway condition is certainly a driver for the project. And the way we've envisioned things, since you're replacing, we're planning on replacing the sewer main, planning on putting new storm drain in the roadway. At that point, the road is going to be entirely torn up. So we would look at full depth, what we call full depth roadway reconstruction, which is digging down, putting brand new aggregates down in there to make the base of the pavement a lot more stable. Increases the drainage properties of the roadway cross section, and then you have something nice and stable that you can build your asphalt pavement on top of. So full depth reconstruction is anticipated in that area. Just a couple more pictures of some of the poor locations that we've seen out there and some of the limited catch basins and storm drains. But really, one of the other drivers is flooding. This project is aiming to redirect some of the stormwater that was originally or currently heading down to kind of that McDonald's area down near that intersection, and more responsibly and in a more controlled manner send it in a different direction into a bigger outfall pipe that would hopefully avoid the situation that you see here in this photo. So that's the need for the project. We have been working kind of behind the scenes and working with Paul on the design of the work, and Nate's going to come up and talk a little bit about what we've done to date and some of the rest of the stuff that we plan on doing. So thank you.
Thank you for having us. The work to date so far has been inspection of the sewer system. That involved cameraing all of the sewer, as you saw in some of those other photos. That's how we knew that those structural deficiencies were present. There was also a land surveyor that went out and did topographic survey of the site. So the whole topography of the project area, located utilities, measured depths and everything that we would need to design a replacement system. There was also geotechnical investigation. There's a railroad crossing, a storm drain that goes under the CSX railroad in between Augusta Road and Lithgow Street. So there were some borings done to locate depth of ledge and just the strength of the soils and materials there to understand the stability. There was also test pits that Public Works dug various locations throughout the neighborhood to figure out what the depth of the aggregate was and pavement depths. And so that's one of the reasons that we know that there is inadequate gravel and not sufficient drainage of moisture underneath of the roadway. And so we kind of, even though this could be a multi-phased project, we still need to consider the full neighborhood and how it would all fit together. So we've been working on more of a preliminary level design of the entire neighborhood, but then focusing it in on how a first phase of that could look in a more detailed manner. So on this slide, you can see an aerial image. It's a little bit hard for you to see, but it's an aerial image of just the neighborhood itself. It shows in dark green the proposed sewer layout, and then in lighter green the storm drains. But the main takeaway is just that it's throughout the whole neighborhood here. Currently, there's probably half as much storm drain and catch basins within here, collecting surface runoff and carrying it away from the roadway. So this would be about doubling the amount of capacity to drain water from the roadway, improving safety of the roadway, and then also limiting icing and less freezing and thawing of this water, breaking apart the pavement. And then pretty much the sewer would be a direct in-kind replacement, the same size sewer, just a new one that would last longer and generally be in the same location within the roadway. On the next slide, it goes into the Lithgow Street portion of the work. So the arrow in the upper left corner points to the stormwater outfall to the Kennebec River, which is where a good portion of the stormwater from this site discharges to. This is the outfall that would receive the water from the abandoned storm drains that currently discharge more towards McDonald's up at Joe Ave. So this would be a more direct route to the river through a larger outfall, helping to limit, hopefully, some of the flooding that's seen in that area.
Is this new? This outfall new, or is it?
It's an existing outfall. If you go to the next slide, there's an image of the current outfall. So that's the current outfall. It's about 12 inches in diameter, which is very small for the amount of project area that's draining to it. As you can see, the concrete head wall is also disconnected from the outfall and is about to enter the Kennebec River. And there's a pipe segment, you can see a little bit better in the upper right image, has disconnected as well. So the pipe's actually separating into multiple pieces. And there's just a lot of erosion of the stream bank, the river bank around it. So this project would replace that with probably something more along the lines of 36 inches or so diameter pipe. So about 3 times the diameter, and restore the bank of the river.
I got a question.
Yep.
The catch basins that you said that we need more of them. How many more is it? And is there a certain amount for the length of the road that we only have maybe 2 or 3? And how
Yeah.
many more are we going to be going with?
I'd have to look at our quantities to get you the exact number, but
Okay.
typically we're looking at a pair of catch basins, one on each side of the road, about every 200 or 250 feet
Okay.
maximum.
And is that including the larger pipe as well, so we don't have that overflow that we've had?
Usually there's a smaller pipe connecting the two across the street
Uh-huh.
that goes into a main trunk line that's bigger than.
Than what we have right now?
Correct. yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of 12-inch pipe throughout the neighborhood. There are even some sporadic 6 inches or so, but the cross connections that we usually design now are a minimum of 15 inches.
Oh, good.
And then the main trunk line that receives a lot of these lateral connections, it varies, being biggest downstream most of the system, but some of them are 48 inches even. So it's the neighborhood's about a 70-acre drainage area. So there's really a lot of water coming through this neighborhood, and right now a lot of it's just staying on the surface.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If you go to no, you're on the right one, the slope stabilization side. This is another area of the project down by Augusta Road. There, on the right 2 images, you can see there's a stream with the riverbank that's severely eroding. Right now, it's actually being held up by mostly a stack of tires, shown in the bottom right image. So this stream would be receiving a lot of the stormwater drainage. There's currently 3 outfalls that discharge to this stream. So we're not adding more outfalls to this, but we are increasing the size of the pipe and more catch basins. So the water's going to be more effectively and quickly discharged to it. So this is a current problem that I think should be addressed anyways, but as part of this project, it would be a good idea to stabilize this and not continue to exacerbate the problem. But this is somebody's private property there along Augusta Road, so that is something that would need to be discussed with them. But the proposal would be to stabilize that slope with riprap, remove the tires and some of the dead tree stumps, and put riprap to really lock it in place. So this is an overall site plan that we've developed of our total project area. So that's the Sunset Heights neighborhood mostly there, and then down by the bottom left corner you can see that's where the Kennebec River outfall is, and then the slope stabilization that I was just talking about. So the preliminary estimate for the entire project area to reconstruct the roadway to full depth, all new sewer, all new storm drainage. It's approximately $15 million construction cost for the entire area. So that is something that Paul has asked us to take a look at into how we could phase that to make it multiple projects instead of one, more manageable pieces. So if you go to the next slide, I will outline what we considered feasible for phase one. So Paul asked us to look at what $7 million could do, approximately half of that total estimate. So you can see outlined in red here, that would include the replacing the outfall to the Kennebec River, and it would storm drain all the way from that up to the top of this red there. So it would abandon those 3 outfalls that go towards McDonald's and hopefully alleviate some of that flooding. So that's one of the main priorities of what a phase one would be. And if we upsize any of the storm drains above the outfall, you really need to carry it all the way down through the outfall, or else you're not going to have the capacity there. And as you've seen, it's already falling apart. So it would be to replace that outfall, which involves jacking and boring a pipe underneath of the CSX railroad tracks, because they don't allow open trench excavation and shutting down of the tracks. So some expensive pieces there, but key starting points for this project. Phase 2, or potentially a phase 2 and 3, depending on what the town desired to break this into, or funding opportunities, is shown in blue here. So it is a good amount of the neighborhood, a decent sized area still, but a lot of the difficult portions, such as the outfall and slope stabilization, would have already been taken care of. So this piece of the project would include 2 more stormwater outfalls on Busier Street, and the upstream drainage network and sewer from that and within the blue area. So funding sources for this project, just as of this weekend, there was a congressional grant signed, so that we had written to Susan Collins and a variety of other people asking the congressional direct spending requests if they might fund this project. They just signed a $3 million grant, so that could be a substantial portion of this project. To make up for the rest of that, USDA Rural Development Water and Waste Disposal Loan and Grant Program seems like a good source for the town. It's a source of funding that the town's used in the past, such as the Benton Avenue sewer project that Ray Pierce designed. And that program is a combination of loan and grant. So it depends on a lot of things, detailed financial information of the town, basically what your user rates are for sewer, and affordability and all that. The factors into how USDA would determine what could be loan or grant, basically what your need is. So for sewer, I've written up here kind of the outline of what's eligible for this type of funding and what's loan or grant eligible. So sewer, part of the sewer could be loan, part grant funded. Stormwater is only eligible to be loan, to receive loan funding, not grant. And then roadway repairs, they'll pay for the repairs above those specific utilities, which ends up taking about half the roadway anyways, based on the same split of loan and grant percentage. So there's no way for us to know what that split between loan and grant would be, but we did take a look at our estimate and take a good first look at how that could play out. We assumed a potential 50-50 breakdown of loan grant split for the sewer, and then 100% loan on stormwater, and then those associated road repairs. And as you can see on the next slide, that resulted in, for the first $7 million phase, a $3 million grant from Congress, as I mentioned, a $0.8 million grant from USDA, and then a $3.2 million loan from USDA. So there's bunch of assumptions involved in that, and they have not guaranteed this funding. But it does seem like a good source of a low-interest loan for the town.
So you're saying we could get up to $7 million in grants?
No, because the stormwater piece, that's only loan eligible.
Okay.
And then only some of the sewer is grant eligible. Some of it would be
Yeah.
loan. It depends on how they look at the affordability to the town and based on their user rates and how many users there are and mean household income, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
One question I have is, no mention about water. Obviously, the water district will come in at the same time and do whatever's necessary for them to replace pipes?
They would have the opportunity to do that. We would need to talk to them, but the idea of this was there would only be minor relocations of water in very small instances if, say, it would be a conflict with the proposed storm drain, but this did not consider, a full replacement of the water.
And whatever cost that would be paid by the water district?
I'm not really sure about that, actually. We would need to talk to them. But I think in terms of minor relocations of things, that would probably have to be paid for by the town since it's a result of the town
Okay.
sewer or storm drain piping.
The other question I have about the sewer is, what is the homeowner's responsibility? When the new sewer pipe goes in, what would be their cost? Their cost would be from their house, we would tie in, Paul, maybe you can answer that question, but they would be responsible for the run of their property from their property to the new line?
Our normal procedure on these projects is usually we run a new sewer line out to the property line, to the right of way. Then the homeowner is responsible for the right of way to the house if they so choose to change it. If they don't, it's there for them in the future. But we're already saving them a fair amount of money, because technically they own up to the main line. So if we replace 30 feet of it on this project, we're saving them quite a bit of effort and money, so.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what our cost estimate factors in, is replacing their 6-inch service to the edge of the right-of-way to their property line. And then additionally, I didn't really get into this too much, but improving the condition of the sewer pipe allows for less groundwater infiltration into that, which means less water actually being treated at the treatment plant. So long-term, the less infiltration you have and higher, less breaks and gaps and joints and such, that it is a lower cost at the treatment plant, but you're not seeing that right away. But technically, there's a lot of water being treated and unnecessary cost at the treatment plant too. So it could be a long-term thing. It's hard to put a number to that, but it could be a long-term savings, or at least limiting future increases in sewer rate costs.
When's the proposed start for phase one, and then how long would phase one last?
Phase one would probably be a 1-year construction project. The start of that's really dependent on the funding, what the town would want for funding. If you do want to go for USDA funding, still need to apply for that, and there's environmental reviews and things that go along with that sometimes can take a long time. Plus the CSX still needs to approve, replacing a storm drain under their tracks. So there are some things that we can't necessarily put a timeline to, but I would assume it could be a next year project if we can quickly get some funding applications in and things to CSX to start taking a look at. And then it'd probably take a year of
It looks like the
construction.
town's responsibility is $3.2 million.
The town would use that, in this scenario, use the $3 million grant from Congress and then have a loan of $3.2 million.
Any other questions?
Would the railroad contribute anything toward their drainage improvements?
I would think very unlikely. The storm drain, it's really one segment of pipe under their storm drain. And considering that the town installed it to begin with, I think they probably would not, but I mean, it's something we could approach them about.
My thought is they're probably considering us lucky to have a pipe under their railroad. So I doubt they would contribute.
They're historically not very easy to deal with. Yeah, yeah,
Well cared for section of track.
yeah, yeah. But if anybody here works for CSX, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have a presentation.
Just one more quick, Ella, what are we looking at for some type of timing, or do you know? I mean, I hate to put you on the spot here.
Yeah, and I really don't have a good answer for you on that, Paul. We've just been awarded the grant for
Yeah.
$3 million, so that in itself is gonna be a process to get that moving. We gotta look into funding, and I'm sure that these guys are gonna help with which direction to go with that as well. But you know, you're gonna borrow $3.2 million. The payments are probably gonna be between $300,000 and $350,000 a year, and we're gonna have to find a way to pay for that.
How long does it take to pay for something like that?
Well, you know, bonding on it can go from 20 to 30 years, depending on how these work.
The only thing I have further to say is, I've been on the council 15 years, and Wally LaFountain's been here for 15. He asked me, he's been looking at this project because of the flooding behind his house, so I thought I'd mention his name. I was over at his house today showing him this presentation, so he says he's 95 years old, so he's only got you know what I mean? He says if we could hurry a
He could
little-
outlive us, right?
Yeah.
Tell them to build a boat?
You go tell him.
We'll just stick them in a freezer, take them back out in a couple years.
Yeah.
Any other questions for him?
I have one other question, probably to Paul. Now, when this, let's say we do it in 3 segments. After the first segment, is it going to be paved at that time there, that section? Okay,
My plan is each section will be done complete.
okay, thank you.
Good.
Anything else? Thank you. We have a presentation on town funds. Hank?
Through the chair.
Yes.
So the reason why I've got Hank here is because it's a conversation that Mike and us have had about the finances, and I just thought it was prudent to make sure that we have a good understanding of where the money is and what it's appointed to. Hank and I just had a conversation, and I just learned something from him on the conversation. One is we don't have a checking account. It's called, and our banker actually calls it a checking account. But I'm
No,
hoping that.
You have a checking account.
We do have.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So can you help us understand what's going on here?
So can I start with what kind of questions do we have from the council? Because like what I'm gleaming from what I'm seeing from conversations is really kind of a misunderstanding on some of the terminology that goes into these governmental financial statements. And I feel like what I'm seeing is people are kind of adding up some numbers that really shouldn't be added up. So, you know, I kept seeing a $10 million floating around. This number kept being mentioned. And so really what I want to go through, and I said, would great if I had some questions to start, but, you know, the checking account, you have a checking account. And it's got at June 30. I'm going to talk everything at June 30, 2023, because that's the land I live in. That's what I helped get ready for your auditors. At that point in time, your general fund had $6.3 million in there. And that counts some other kind of smaller cash accounts. You got a checking account for your general fund. You got a payroll checking account. And everything gets moved into a sweep. And that earns interest. And that's really where all your money is tied up on the town side. That isn't library, different types of investments specifically for the library. So this isn't including this. That general fund money also, that checking account also holds money for other funds because you have a capital improvement fund, which has a little over $1.1 million in it at the end of June 30. You also have a TIF fund that has over $500,000. So out of that 6.3 million, there's money tied up in these other funds. So you really, your general fund cash position is 4.7 million. You have what's called unassigned fund balance, and this is where I think a big chunk of this confusion is coming from. And really what we have with what's fund balance, you get down to a balance sheet, and your balance sheet is assets minus liabilities equal equity, which is fund balance. It's equity in the accounting world. So that's kind of just the other side, because everything with accounting has two sides. You got debits and credits, and that's the credit side. And really, that's your residual balance of leftover, what you've had from operations since the inception of the town. So that's kind of where your fund balance, what your position is. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a cash balance, okay? Because there's a lot more that goes into your balance sheet besides just cash and fund balance. If it was a perfect world and there was nothing else, then if those were the only two items, then they would equal each other. But you have things like taxes receivable on your books. You have other types of receivables. The state may owe you money for certain things. You have ambulance receivables on the books. And on the other side, you have payables, is for liabilities, you have accrued wages. So all these things factor in. So you really can't just look at your cash balance, look at your fund balance number and assume you have that in readily available cash. A big chunk what I seen was talked about was, what can we have to invest in cash? You know, what can we take? And I seen a lot of terminology of like, let's take some of this unassigned fund balance and invest it. And that's really kind of not how that works. What you really want to see is what type of cash balance, excess cash you have if you want to invest it in anything. You know, I suggested to Tanya to take a look at your checking accounts for the year, and what we do is you kind of find out what your low cash balance is. Because bills don't come in perfect here in the municipal world. You guys at least collect taxes 4 times a year. That's better than a lot of communities. I got some places that collect once a year. So your cash flow can be very much affected if you're only collecting it once a year off your taxes. So you got a steady cash flow, you're getting quarterly payments in for your taxes. So that you don't really have affected by that. But what you have is a lot of one-time payments, like for debt payments. Well, those come usually biannually, and they happen at 2 different times of the year. A lot of times May and November. You know, it depends on what type of loans you have. So, okay, well now your cash balance may be low right after you make that payment. Now you budgeted for the full amount, and you raise taxes to cover that full amount, but the money doesn't come in with how the bills always go out. So that's why I say you really got to really see how much, what's your like low cash balance during the year, and that's probably what you have available to actually put into like a longer CD to earn maybe a better interest rate than what your sweep is already giving you.
And how much would that be?
How much would what be?
The amount of money, because the town manager a few weeks ago had mentioned that we had $125,000 that we could possibly put into a CD to get some interest on it.
Well, I mean, I don't know because I haven't done an analysis of your cash during the 12 months of the year. So I don't know what would be the prudent amount that you'd have to move into a separate account that can just kind of sit there and earn extra interest. But I know like the whole deal was getting about, I think, 2.5% on June 30. So everything in that checking account gets swept to what's called a sweep account, and then I think it was earning 2.5%. But don't quote me on that. I just looked it up, but I might be wrong on that.
And Mike, that actually came from our banker who made that recommendation, because Tanya and I sat down with her and we're trying to figure out what to do with this, and that's where that $125,000 came from.
Yeah, but you also said it came out from another amount. What and where did that come from? Because of that amount you said it was what, 4 million? 4 million or 5
No,
million?
that was in the checking account. We had, well, 2 funds, unassigned and assigned, checking and unassigned.
Now that's, so you've got your terminology mixed up. So that's not, it's unassigned, assigned. These are just amounts of fund balance and what's assigned. It has nothing to do with what's in the bank account. Doesn't matter what account it is in. If you had, so how your cash is presented on the financial statements where it says 6.3 million, if you had this in checking, CDs, savings accounts, it would all still just be cash of 6.3 million. It will not affect your unassigned amounts. Unassigned versus assigned is you've earmarked this money for a certain project. When you guys, every year you vote to put money into capital improvements, or maybe make a supplemental vote to put extra money into capital improvements during the year, that's you committing funds for a purpose. And that's called committed fund balance on the financial statements and shown in a separate fund. That's how far it gets broken out. But that's a committed. if you had an assignment, that's, you assigned, it's a lower level, but you assign money for a purpose. One assignment is if you budgeted to use fund balance in your next year's budget, like FY '25, say you budgeted to use 500,000. That would show up as assigned fund balance. But what type of cash account that you have your funds in has nothing to do with net position, has nothing to do with assigned or unassigned. So we're kind of mixing apples and oranges there, okay? Really what I'm saying is no matter what and how you invest your cash or what type of bank accounts your cash is in that is earning interest, that's not going to affect this unassigned assigned balance because you're not assigning it to a purpose fund. You're just investing it and then earning revenue off your monies until you need to use it. And maybe they come out of said investment to be spent on whatever is budgeted for.
So we can safely say that that unassigned amount of money, we could probably put it to try to reduce the mill rates in our taxes?
Yeah, a portion of that. I was looking up your numbers. So right now, your unassigned fund balance was 5.1 million at the end of June 30, 23. That's 25% of the town expenses plus what you transfer for a local appropriation to the school. GFOA recommends having usually at least about 20%. When I worked at RKO back in the day when I was doing audits, we always said 1 to 2 months of expenditures on hand. You know, you don't really want to dip below 15, 16% a lot of times. And the lower you knock that fund balance down with use of fund balance, then usually your interest rates on borrowing go up because like your bond rating will go down with the less fund balance you have. So like with your fund balance, yeah, there probably is some to use. But in the same breath, if you do use it and your fund balance starts to go down, borrowing in the future, and I've seen just from the engineers who were just here beforehand, potential borrowing coming up for big projects, those interest rates could go up if that fund balance is at a lower balance. So
Is there a certain amount for that fund balance as far as the interest rates that we're getting?
You'd have to, I mean, I don't give out interest rates or loans. So that's what I was saying. I think GFOA, which is the Governmental Finance Officers Association, I think they recommend about 20%. And you guys are sitting at about 25. So I think there is some leeway in there to use some fund balance, but I mean, it's a line to toe. You know, some places, if you get your fund balance too low, then you end up putting yourself in cash difficulties, where I've seen places who really keep that fund balance to a minimum, but they borrow money all year to spend money. So they put out what's called a revenue anticipation note, and they're paying X amount of percent just to pay their monthly bills, you know? So that's the type of decisions you guys factor in.
So the amount that we're talking about, if we have to keep a 20% fund balance for a better rating, the rest of the money, what would that leave us for the rest of the money as far as that we could possibly put on for the taxes, for Winslow, try to reduce that tax?
Well, I mean, that's again, that would be like a decision you would look at, you know, not me. I'm not here to run the town.
Well, I was just looking at the numbers that you might have there in front of you.
I'd have to do math, you know, but what easy way to do is take a look at your total budget, what you're given, what your expenditures are, what you're going to be pitching over to the school for your local appropriation, and times that by 20%. You know, and then that's kind of where you want to be with your fund balance, and that kind of will give you an idea of kind of where you want that baseline of fund balance to be. And really, you know, let's see, finance director, he's retired now. His name is Ralph St. Pierre. I talked to him a lot, and he taught me a lot. But he said one of the things about use of fund balance is sometimes it's hard to get off of use of fund balance because it's easy to budget a hole, because that's really what you're doing. And I tell everybody, if you guys were the perfect budgeters, every time you budgeted, you hit every number on the money. You guys were fantastic budgeters. Hit it. Whatever you budgeted use of fund balance, that's how much that would go down. So if you budgeted to use $1 million and you guys perfectly budgeted, well, next year your fund balance would be down to 4.1 million. And it goes down to 3.1. You know, if you were the perfect budget. Usually what happens is people use fund balance, use $500,000, but then revenues come in over, expenditures come in a little under, and you kind of make up for it. Maybe your fund balance doesn't go down as much as what you budgeted for. But some of those are the types of things that like people factor in with that. But he always said, once you start on that, sometimes it's hard to get off, because really, a lot of places I have, we're budgeting for use of $1 million fund balance a year. Well, eventually you hit a cliff, and eventually that stops, and then eventually you have to raise that $1 million that you weren't raising forever. You know, so again, things to factor in.
For the last 15 years, I don't wanna be quoted on this for the averages, but usually out of fund balance, we'll take out between 800,000 and $1 million of fund balance. And so theoretically, that money, you're in a hole for the next year, already that amount of money. So if you take out a fund balance and you can't make it up with taxes or other revenues, you're in the hole when you start that budget for $1 million, if that's the case. Traditionally, if we've taken $800,000 to lower the mill rate or to do that, we grossly, I don't know if grossly is the right word, but we miscalculate revenues. So usually we're 300,000 to 400,000 more in revenues a year. So if we take 8,000 out of 800,000 out of fund balance, our revenues are going to be 400,000 more than anticipated. Then the net loss to the fund balance would be $400,000. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little less, but you're always in the hole if you use fund balance. Fund balance to balance your budget or to reduce the mill rate. That's the amount you're in the hole when you start the next budget. So you gotta be really careful about that.
Through the chair?
Yep.
The average fund balance, you're saying the average is 20%. 20%'s the high one?
No, that's what I'm saying is that's the recommendation
sorry.
from the GFOA to telling you to have at least.
Right,
that.
at
They're saying
least.
that's the minimum they want you to have.
20%? Because I was under the understanding that 25 is a high.
Well, 25 is higher than 20, so I mean.
25 is higher than most averages, though, isn't it? It is.
Depends on what community you're in.
Most communities, even Ella, you even said, we are very high at 25% compared to other towns our
We're in
size.
good shape financially, yes.
Very good shape with that. So to say, I understand because I think we all balance checkbooks and stuff, but to say, like, I understand what you're saying too, Ray, but couldn't you put, if you wanted to take some of that money, which is high, and put it toward, let's just say, the taxes to help people out for the mill rate? Couldn't you put it as an assigned? That way,
Yeah, those are, and that's what I'm saying, those are decisions you guys will make as the council. I'm just giving you factors to think about when you make that decision to use fund balance. I'm not telling you not to use it.
right. I just wanted to clarify that 25% is a high for the towns locally.
I'd like to respond to that. In your budget, I've used $850,000 out of fund balance for that budget. And this is something we haven't done for a few years. I've gotten accustomed to being able to use that. And what I base it upon the 20% because the 850 brings us close to the 20% from the 25. And the other thing is we're going to probably come over at the end of the budget. So we're going to be taking money from our different accounts and we're going to be adding them back into the fund balance. It looks like we're going to come awfully close at this point in time if it continues to move in the same direction to be able to put back in the same amount of money that we pulled back out. Might be shy a little bit, but it's going to be close.
Is your goals to stay at 25% all the time?
No, actually a fund balance policy is the golden rule, and we should sit down as a council to have a conversation about that. The town of Oakland has a 15% fund balance policy, which is low, but if we ended up coming up with one that showed 20%, I think it would be easy for us to maintain. The taxpayers would benefit certainly this year, and if things go right and we're tight as a unit, then we're going to be putting money back in the end of June, back into our.
And being at 20%, if it were to go down, will we still get a high rating on our score?
20% is as.
I think so.
Yeah.
To me, when they come in for loans, they want to make sure you're going to be able to pay that loan off. I mean, that's the big thing. And if the places that are running it, skin in their teeth, those are the ones that usually suffer with higher rates.
We've got some big loans coming possibly, so.
Any other
Other
questions?
questions for Hank?
Anyone else?
Thank you,
Thank you, Hank.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
and I appreciate you coming up.
And if anybody else has any questions, feel free to either pitch them through Ella or Tanya to reach out to me, and I'll happily answer anything.
Thank you.
Mike, do you want to discuss, after we've heard that, about taking $125,000 and investing that? I did call up Edward Jones, and they're actually at a really good rate, much higher than our current bank. We're not members there as far as the town goes, but that's an option for us, so.
Yeah, I think it was the best because it's not tied up. I mean, we're getting 5.1% in a year, and then if we needed that money, it can be freed up immediately, and there's no penalties in removing it, so it's much better than a CD.
Right. I don't know if I dare to go to $250,000. I think to start off with 125 and see how that works out for us, because I haven't been through a year's cycle yet, so I don't even know what the low spot is. But I think that if we wanted just to start playing in this idea, it might be a good chance to start with it.
I think I'd like to see a little bit more in that, see if we can get a little bit more interest. And
What were you thinking?
I'd probably go around 2 anyways. Because the thing is that we can get it anytime we want. If we needed the money, we can get it out the same day, and
Okay,
there's
let
no
me sit with
penalties.
Tanya and find out where she is on it, and I don't have an issue with that, to be honest with
Okay,
Where
as long
does
as
that
it's okay with the rest of the
interest
council.
Where does the interest that is made on that money go? Where does that money go?
General fund.
Into the general fund?
You'd look.
Which
if you-
could maybe be applied each year
you.
to
Yeah, I
lower
mean,
taxes for people?
This will be, well, I do an estimated taxes you're gonna find on your revenue sheets, and we'll talk through that. There's an estimated revenue that we're gonna get, and that gets applied to revenues. So this would just be combined to that amount. So if we end up with a 5.2% interest through that company, then on $200,000,
So the interest goes in different accounts?
just give me a
is that what
little
you're
bit more to estimate, that's all, so.
Through the chair, what do you need from us for an okay to go for the
Well,
200,000?
actually, you know something, I'm not sure that I actually need a vote on this, because the finance part of it like this, I think this is something that we can move forward with, but if you feel as though you want to vote to support us trying a CD, it would be a safety net for me.
I think it would be a safe thing to do.
A straw vote?
Us to vote, yes.
I believe so.
Well, I'd like to say something first, Mr. Chairman.
Good.
My thoughts of this is that the difference in interest rates between 4.5% and 5.1%, even on $200,000, is not a heck of a lot of money. We've been dealing with Bangor Savings Bank as the only bank in town for a long time now. And it's my opinion that we should stick with an in-town bank where the differences is not gonna be that great. You might be talking, even on 200,000 now, on 125, I think it was $600. You're probably talking less than $1,000 to not deal with Bangor Savings Bank.
Through the chair,
And I think we should go with our local bank.
through the chair.
Go ahead, Mike.
I don't think we should go as far as going to our local bank. I think that where we can free it up anytime we want without penalties, I think is even better.
Making more money makes more sense.
Absolutely, even if it's $600 that we didn't have before. And then what I like about it, there's no penalties, it's not frozen. That money is not frozen for a 6-month or a 12-month CD. It's available.
Like a CD is a CD, I don't think it's frozen, we just won't get the interest on it. We
That's
can take
right,
that
and then
money
you're
out.
penalized too.
The difference is $10,400 a year in interest versus $9,200.
$800 difference.
What are we talking
That's
about?
$1,200 difference.
What are we talking about as far as penalties for removing it early?
I don't
If we
think there is
decide-
any penalties other than the fact that you're not going to collect your interest, and I think that holds for any CD.
So how much, okay, that's CD, but see with the money market.
We
we're
can't
still
go with a
get-
money market. We have to go with a guaranteed amount. Money market is too risky for us.
If you check with Seth,
Yeah.
and he'll tell you that's all protected under 250,000.
Okay, I talked with Luke, and we're talking CDs, not money markets.
Yeah, talking about the money market, this is where it can be freed up at any time.
Do you know if legally we can invest in a money market in a
I
municipality?
think so. I'm not a lawyer, so do not quote me.
Okay.
But I mean, most places, I think money market. I mean, the big thing is most times they say that for prudent investment in a government, it shouldn't be something that can lose value.
Right. Okay. So the CD is 5.2%. The money market was 5.1, is that what I understood you say?
I don't know what the CD is through Edward Jones, but I know it's 5.1 of 5.18, I think it is, for the money market, like I said, with no penalties.
Okay.
And I've also talked with Seth Carlson that was as far as the Edward Jones, and he also told me, he says it's guaranteed. I mean, it's insured up to $250,000. He says he would have no problem doing that with us.
Okay, perfect.
So I'll repeat my question through the chair again, is what do you need from us? Do you want, your decision, to me, it's your decision on where you invest it. That's what we hire you for. You make that decision. All I would need is a straw vote for the amount.
Right.
So up to 200,000, I think that's what you're looking for now.
And
So-
I would, since we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, I would tend to try to go to the highest interest rate being paid. And that's, I mean, we're not dealing with our money at home, we're dealing with their money. And I think that we
Okay.
need to give them the best bang for the buck.
So through the chair, could we have a straw vote on the 200,000 limit only at this point? At the highest rate that we can get?
Works for me.
Okay.
Okay. So a limit of 200,000 on the best rate. All in favor, 7-0. Any other questions for Hank?
Thank you, Hank.
Thanks for having me. No clue why you guys would have an engineer and then an accountant come talk.
You know, for an accountant, you're pretty exciting, I gotta admit. That's not saying a lot, but.
I know, don't worry. You guys have one for us.
Thank you.
Okay, under reports of committees and commissions, the town manager's report.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I just want to update you on the Halifax Park Stage Committee. We've had one meeting so far. We're trying to determine whether we're going to have a permanent or a temporary stage down there. I think we're coming more onto the permanent side of things. We do have to keep it in the same location, and the reason for that is because there's been past archaeological digs, and the concern was we didn't want to mess with that. We've been in touch with FEMA. Apparently, the stage and a lot of the frontal property on the river is covered by them. So this may not cost us as much money as what we thought it might. There's going to be more to follow on that. We had our first meeting, our phone meeting with them today. There's going to be a scoping meeting next week. And so this is, the project is going to be under $1 million, and a lot of this money is actually going to come from the government. The Kennebec County has deemed this area a disaster area, and that's what opens up the FEMA channels for us. It was determined at our last council meeting to fund site testing for a closed junior high, the grounds and area, to gather estimates and removal of contaminants and demolition of the building. If we decide to go that route, a check has been issued, and that process is now underway. We're just waiting for, I'm looking for available grants to help pay for that. I worked on that a large part of today, and hopefully we'll have some idea as far as what the contaminants, if any, is on the site. On 2/21, we held our second Chafee Brook Pump Station meeting regarding a pre-permitting for the river crossing. We're attempted to get the permits needed to move the construction window from November back to October. That'll give us a wider window of time for the construction company to do necessary work. With today's weather changes, we feel that it's important that we can attempt to avoid another situation like last December. We're dealing with these large storms, and it's problematic. I see Paul's gone. I want to congratulate him. He wrote a grant for $200,000 for MDOT, and that is for a culvert that is on...
Northbound?
Yes, thank you. But there's a commitment from the town. We have to commit $271,000 to get that $200,000. So it's not, it's more than a 50% match on our end. Apparently, this culvert is a large galvanized culvert that's rotting, and it's going to be. I was just reading that, and I forgot it. North Pond Road at Faber Brook. Apparently, there's a large culvert down through there. And without this grant, we're going to end up having to eat the entire estimated of almost $500,000 to do it. So this is certainly a help. These guys are great with grants, that's for sure. Due to the budget hearings, we're only going to be holding one council meeting this month. Our next council meeting is scheduled for April 8th. Questions?
Okay. Okay, and we have all the other department reports. I don't believe we have any more department heads that'd like to review. Oh, I'm sorry, Peter. Did you want to talk about the school in there?
Sure.
Always take an opportunity to talk about your school system. I mentioned this last time, but if you get a chance to visit our website, just to see some of the proud moments that happen in your school district here in Winslow. You'll see some information on some of the things that have taken place, some of the things that are about to take place. Perhaps, I mentioned last time that the chorus students performed at the State House. I also mentioned that the College Fair Cafe was an opportunity for our kids to look at college applications, and it's a link to that article as well from Fox on Bangor News, so you can look at that. The high school honors students displayed their posters, projects, and research papers for unasortic genetic conditions as part of their study on genetics. They invited parents to come in and see those displays. They're in the process of developing a similar project for parents in the area of chemistry. Visual and performing arts students will be are going to Educare this month to do a presentation to the toddlers. And when you look at our work is consumed, as yours is at this point in time, with budget presentation preparation. We continue to have budget meetings specifically for that purpose. And we continue to look at ways in which we can offset some of the costs of our budgets by various grants that might be presented to us that we've been writing and applying for, in hopes that we will receive some of those grants. I'm not sure, we talk about Winter Carnival, and you say, oh, Winter Carnival is something the high school does, and what's the big deal about Winter Carnival? But there was a big deal about Winter Carnival this year, which I think everybody kind of forgets. And Winter Carnival ended with a unified basketball game. And the unified basketball game is an opportunity for our unified students to participate with in a game with some of our seniors this particular year. Why is that important? Is because you have students of all abilities playing in this game. You had an entire gymnasium of other students cheering the kids on. You had a complete moment that was utterly beautiful in terms of acceptance and working together. At one point, you had the advisor reminding the kids that you come from the freshman class, the sophomore class, juniors, and seniors. But in this particular moment, you're all Black Raiders. Why is that important? We're all one community. And working together is pretty powerful. Many of you have attended our schools to visit. I thank you for, if you had the opportunity to come in and walk through, I thank you for that. I want to ask, raise the hands. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but have you ever been to a unified game? Anybody in this room? So those of you who have been to a unified game understand what I'm talking about when it's a touching moment. You understand what I'm talking about when I say it's special, and I want to say thank you, Fran, to you for attending one of those games. I heard that you were there.
Peter, I'm going to correct you. I've attended probably 3 of them.
Perfect.
I went to the first one, and I'm just going to give it a little tiny bit. I worked in the field with disabled people, and to see the difference from 20 years ago to going to one of these games, I was totally floored, number one, at how well the seniors were there in support. But it was magnificent to see so many students attend that game, cheer them on, dance with them at halftime, and those kids can play basketball. I'm hooked. I'm hooked. They've got one kid that is a three-pointer. I think he did 11 in one game. 3-point shots. It's
That's
amazing.
Sam Gagnon.
Yes, it's Sam. And if you've never gone, just go one time. Go one time. You'll be proud of every student in that school, every one of them.
And I think that's the point that I really wanted to make.
Oh,
was
it's
that
fantastic.
it's an environment that has been created, and that's part of the chemistry of your community, and it's an important
Loud
piece.
message of acceptance. It was great.
Correct.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion to accept the reports?
Motion to accept all reports?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Right today. Okay, Dale Macklin,
Yes?
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Adam Lint,
Yes.
Lee Trahan,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
and Mike Joseph.
Yes.
To accept all reports passes 7-0. And then we have the treasurer's warrant and the financial reports were all on the agenda for you. On to tabled business, we have resolution 6-2024, providing for authorization for the public safety director to determine which one of the Winslow ambulance is the least desirable and to sell it.
We're gonna continue to leave that tabled?
No.
Motion to remove it from the table, and
I second.
motion we vote on it.
I'm sorry, Fran, did you say second?
I'm sorry, I said second to his motion.
And then we'll just need a roll call vote to take that off the table. Dale Macklin,
No?
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
I'm sorry, there's no discussion before that?
Yeah,
vote?
we.
Yeah.
do we need a
We have-
discussion?
You
Yeah,
do
we need-
discussion
Yeah, we gotta-
before, I'm
We take it
sorry.
off the table,
Okay.
we
Take it off
need
the table.
discussion.
Sorry.
So are we discussing through the
We're,
chair?
You have something, right?
Nope, I'm just remembering what it was. No, I'm all set. It's just,
Through the chair, I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
I just want to remind before we vote that the third ambulance, selling a ambulance we already own is kind of, in my opinion, not productive to the people of Winslow because that would leave us with 2 ambulances, and if one does go down, we will have to purchase a new ambulance at a much higher cost than the one we already own. They've never explained the need to sell an ambulance. They've never said why they want to sell an ambulance. They will tell you there's not enough room to keep the ambulance. There is enough room, it's very cramped, but they don't need to keep it inside. All 7 cruisers that they have are outside all year long, 24/7. So you can put an ambulance outside. But to get rid of it, especially where we don't know where we are with things right now, as far as possibly doing transfers down the road or helping another town that doesn't have an ambulance service to respond to their town, such as, just say Vassarboro or something, having 3 ambulances that you own makes no sense to sell to the people. You're just gonna ask them, you guys gonna buy a brand new one when we need one? Or are you just gonna use the one we already have?
And we use it as a multi-purpose vehicle.
A utility vehicle, they
Yeah.
can use it as that.
Through the chair.
Ed?
I was against the ambulance service when it first came about. But today, where things have changed in this world, and we don't have the services that we need because people have lack of employees to be working there, I think is very, very important to keep the ambulances we have here. I see that what's happened to me a year ago, that I couldn't get an ambulance. And I think if we would have had our own ambulance that could have brought me to Portland, I wouldn't have had to wait 16 hours to have an ambulance come from Bangor to pick me up, to bring me to Portland to have heart surgery. So I think it's very important for the citizens here in Winslow. I hope the heck it never happens to any of you whatsoever. I think it's very important to keep it.
I think through the chair, I think when we haven't made the decision about transfers yet, and I think until we make that decision, until we have that discussion, that keeping that third ambulance would be prudent at this point in time. I think there's a possibility in the future that with transfers where if the local ambulance that we have now could offer transfers to residents in the town of Winslow, I would see that as a very positive type of service that we could add, given the circumstances currently. So I would be in favor of not selling that third ambulance at the present time.
Well, that's the whole reason we tabled it until we got through budgets and all that. To figure out what our plan is gonna be
Yep.
long-term.
We're not agreeing to keep it, and we're not agreeing to sell
Well,
it.
that's what he made a motion to
If-
do.
if we
He wants
table
it
it.
off the table and
Yeah,
then
but
vote to keep it. That was his
we-
motion, that
we-
was second.
The only motion on right now is the motion to take it off the table. Then we've got to vote to take it off the table, and then vote whether to sell it or not. And we've left this table for 2 or 3 months now with the understanding, my understanding was anyway, we wait till budget time and find out where the fire department, where our ambulance sits, where our interfacility transfers sit, that whole thing. And then, when those decisions are made, then we can take it off the table later on. We're not saying get rid of it right now by tabling it. We're just postponing that decision until we're done with the budget process, which starts in a couple of weeks. That's all tabling it means.
I don't understand why it's been tabled 3 times, why you feel you have to wait till after the budget.
It was
That's your
tabled the
opinion.
first time because it was on the agenda in December before you new folks came on board. And we agreed to table it then, to wait till you guys got on board. And then we tabled it to wait till the budget gets done because of all of these other things. So we're not, by leaving it tabled, we're not agreeing to keep it or sell it. And we'll just make that decision down the road when we're dealing with the budget. And the best place to deal with it is when the workshops take place.
And through the chair, if, say we take it off the table, vote on it, but it gets defeated, we can't bring it back
For a year.
for a year. So so we would be, at that point in time, really at this point in time, making a decision whether to sell it or not to sell it for a year.
Any other discussion? Utter roll call on taking it off the table.
Okay, so I'll go back to Dale.
No.
Fran?
Yes.
Ray?
No.
Adam?
Yes.
Lee?
No.
Jeff?
No.
And Mike Joseph.
Yes.
The motion to take it off the table fails 4-3. So it will remain on the table. So we have no old business, and we're on to new business. It is a joint public hearing regarding the zoning changes from low-density residential to mixed use. And this is a 5-minute just for public comment, correct?
We actually have Chris to kind of open up this conversation. Is Chris here? Chris, do you want to step up here, please? For those of you who don't know, this is Chris Lyons. He's our code enforcement officer.
Good evening, councilors, Mr. Chair, Ella, Audra. Any questions?
Why don't you share with us a little bit about where we are, how we come here, and where we're going to go from here?
Very good. Basically, it started, a resident, Denise, wanted a sign. She lives in the low-density area. She does have a home occupation business, which is allowable in the low-density residential area. Unfortunately, it is very clear in the code, from Denise's point of view at least, that signs are not allowed except for in 2 very specific ways in all residential areas. It is my understanding that ordinance was written that way because many people who want to live in residential areas do not want a lot of signs. You know, real estate signs are allowed, construction, danger, road work, things like that. In Denise's case, because of the way her land is, we could get a sign on it, but 2 ways would need to be done. One, which is a stretch of the codes, but that's fine. A bus stop could be built near the end of her driveway, and the signs could be attached to it, thus having signs. Yes, a little additional cost to the homeowner to have a sign. However, she owns the property, and I can't speak much more than that. The second option is it slopes up. My take on that, and I realize there's extra costs involved there, the trees would have to be topped. I think most of them are smaller trees, so therefore the cost would be lower, but it would be extra cost. And then it could be placed precisely within the codes, on the barn, on a hill, with great viewing from the road. And it would still stick to the codes without having to change zoning. That's two of the possibilities. Many possibilities have been talked about. A lot of suggestions have come from council members. A few was spot or contract zoning. I suggest not doing that. It's highly controversial and possibly illegal. It's never been tested in court yet, but the recommendations from the legal department of the Maine Municipal Association highly suggest it could be. Another viewpoint from codes, we did send out information at the suggested proposal to change 12 of the lots already in low residential, density residential, and change it to mixed use. It is my personal opinion, the opinion of Kennebec Valley Council of Government, the lead planners who helped us develop our comprehensive plan for the next 10 years and a previous plan 10 years before, and they highly recommend that would be a bad idea. It doesn't mean changing zoning districts is a bad idea in general, but it's the opinion of the code enforcement that it would be not well received by the local residents whose homes that they purchase on the understanding they could have a residential area and then it's changed. I think that might open up a can of worms that would be quite painful for many people in the town, or create a lot more tension, stress, anger, maybe things said than is necessary.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Mike.
How many people is bordering that property? I mean, not how many people, how many are in that particular zone?
Well, as suggested, the 12 lots that follow from the industrial district down to the Taylor Road is on the one side of the Augusta Road, which extends way down the Taylor Road and comes back up a little bit into the industrial district. This is all zoned as residential. And that means there's less density, but with the low, let me back up. It is all those properties, and I've actually received 3 phone calls already that that would be a very bad idea. And that was not from the property owners. That was the people who were their neighbors, who were behind them, that wouldn't be changed in a zoning change. They were quite not happy.
And how many people got this notice?
12.
12 people got the notice?
Yep.
So the people adjoining this property here, what residential, are they in a residential district or are
Yes.
they? Okay, so they're residential, so their properties adjoining, that possibly that we change it to mixed use, correct? And then, correct me if I'm wrong, with somebody in the council, when mixed use comes in play, is it the same idea as having the industrial, just like we have the industrial park off the Augusta Road? Is it the same idea?
No,
It's just, it's different
Totally
uses.
different, isn't it? Okay, so,
It increases the allowable uses of mixed use to more uses than low-density residential, but not to the extent of industrial.
okay, so the question is that how much difference is there that would possibly cause any kind of conflict with the adjoining properties in the residential?
Let's say I have a $300,000 house. I have 3 young kids. We go to mixed use. My neighbors now sold the land. I have a McDonald's in a parking lot next to me. That's what could happen if you make this change. Obviously, I'm not for it, but I'm just a code enforcement officer. That is not my decision. I will do as I'm told. But I think it would be a very bad idea.
I understand that through the chair. The thing is that we have the Augusta Road and we have Benton Avenue. Those are the only areas that we can actually promote businesses to be there. And for this one person here that wants a sign, if she doesn't get a sign, she's going to probably move over and go to Waterville and start her own business over there. But we're talking just a sign. So do we have to bring it to mixed use, or can we just have them to have a sign to have it on that property?
Absolutely, as discussed, and letters sent to the council, an email sent to all councilors 3-4 weeks ago. I pointed out all the possibilities, and I still believe the best possibility is either the bus stop without randomly changing well-established homeowners and completely changing the zone would be very disruptive. And so we have 2 options that would be acceptable from the town's perspective, from codes that are the bus stop, again, which is a stretch of codes, but allowable to give, let her have a sign. And 2, top those trees, and you would have great visibility on the side of that garage for her sign.
So
Without changing 12 homeowners' status of their property.
Okay, so the other side, the riverside, that's mixed use, correct?
Correct, and that's because it was historical. As pointed out in our comprehensive plan, the areas that have been kept in mixed use were already traditionally very much integrated into business, home, church, and all this.
So they could open up a McDonald's right across the street then?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's not next to somebody's home.
Well,
That bought their
if it's
home.
across the street from Denise's, I guess it's pretty close to their home.
Yeah, sure, it's on, in the parking lot, it's not beside her. But I apologize for arguing. That's how I see it.
There's no argument, I'm just discussing it, that's all.
Yeah, and,
Chris,
Yes.
just one other alternative, and I briefly discussed this with you, I don't know if you looked into it or not. Low density does not allow a sign like this lady wants.
correct, low density,
Because another part of the code says no signs in low-density residential districts.
it says all residential
All
districts,
residential districts.
which is high, medium, and low density.
Yeah, so can we change, rather than rezone the whole thing mixed use and run into somebody that might want to put a McDonald's and a trailer park could go in if we change it to mixed use,
Sure.
anywhere in there? Can we change that other provision that signs of certain limits, certain sizes, certain descriptions are allowed in low-density residential districts?
Absolutely.
And that would be a less intrusive way of doing it with the other owners out there.
That would depend on how the other property owners feel about that. They live in an area where they understand a sign isn't, I'm just explaining the thought process behind it. It would depend on how the residential homeowners in that zone would feel about it, really. What I've
We're not
heard,
making a decision here tonight on this. We're gonna have the public hearing, then it's going back to the planning board.
yes,
And then it'll come back to us
yes,
later on.
yes.
Okay.
Through the chair, is that, well, she already had signatures from the surrounding properties. She has 6 signatures saying that they have no problem with it, that would not deface the value of her property as well. So we've already got 6 out of the 12 that's agreeing to it. I mean, so I can't, like Dale was just saying, I think that we could make a provision and having her have a sign anyway so she can run her business there. We don't want to discourage businesses here in Winslow. We need more businesses in Winslow. And there's the only 2 areas that we have. And we have Augusta Road and we have Benton Avenue. And this one here is just of 6 people, that's 6 families that are there in that particular district. So one way or the other, I don't think that we should disallow her having a sign in any way or manner.
Any other questions from the council?
It's just that, I would have to look at all low-density residential areas. If we do make a
The only one in
change,
town, right?
there's only one, is that the only
That's the
one?
only low-density residential district.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, do I understand correct that you don't have to change the zone at all? You can just amend the rule of no sign?
Correct. That's another possibility. I would caution, it would be, I believe, prudent to send out letters or information to people in that area and ask them how I feel about it. I understand 6 out of maybe 120 said they don't care if Denise does it, but that doesn't mean they want signs on everywhere.
Through the chair.
I see that as a possibility.
Through the chair, could you come up with a limited evasive sign, a limited evasive sign that would be prudent for the area, that
Certain
could
sizes,
go in front
so
of
they're
the,
not
go ahead,
built-
Joe.
I'm sorry, right?
No, go ahead,
The opposite side of the road can put up pretty much
know.
whatever they want.
That's what I'm just saying, is,
So,
can you come
I
up
guess
with a sign that would be
it's a main corridor in the
prudent for
town.
that area?
Now, could she put the sign on the other side of the road? With an easement through the town? No?
I don't know why you just couldn't do an amendment to that one rule and make the sign a certain size, so it's not a billboard.
Through the chair, you just mentioned 120 out of 6. Well, why?
In
120?
low-density residential.
Okay, but that's not talking 120 in that area, in
Yes.
on Augusta Road?
In that zoning, the low-density residential area. Because you're not just talking about the sign ordinance along that strip of road on Augusta. You're talking about the entire low-density residential, if you would like to have it limited to that, or open it up to even medium and high density.
Well, that's the only low-density district we have in town, isn't it?
Correct, but again, signs are not are prohibited in all residential areas, whether high, medium. So you're impacting, if you limit it to low density, that would lessen the impact, but you're actually looking at a change that would probably impact over 3,000 to 4,000 people if you went all residential zones.
We don't have to go all residential zone.
Yes, and that's, again, for direction from the planning board, the council, and the town manager.
If I may, through the chair,
Mm-hmm.
I make a suggestion that we just change that provision and allow a suitable sign that's not a billboard, but a suitable sign to go on the front lawn of that individual, since it's only in that small area. I mean, it's a high-traffic area, so, I mean, it can't be too small for them. In other words, it can't be too small when you have the amount of speed that there is on the Augusta Road, but it needs to be not a billboard, like I said. I think we ought to send it to the planning board to come up with a better solution and allow a sign on Route 201.
In the low-density residential?
Yes.
zone.
In low-density residential, draft an ordinance, bring to the planning board an ordinance change to allow signs throughout the low-density residential area of a certain size or
Yeah.
with restrictions yet to be determined.
Yes.
Okay.
So just to interrupt, that would be an ordinance change, and we would need to have another public hearing on that change.
Yeah, just for a point of order, Mr. Chairman, we're here
Right.
tonight only on.
We're here tonight for a zoning change.
Only for a
zoning
zoning
and mixed
change,
use.
correct.
That's
So
it,
if we're
period.
gonna change the ordinance for a sign to be in low density, we will have to kind of start over, have another joint public hearing next.
That's right.
Yeah, it'll be next
We can
meeting
finish.
in April. I should be able to get that into the town line
We-
to hold that.
We can finish this public hearing tonight, then it goes to the planning board. And it's up to the
Correct.
planning board to bring to the council what the planning board determines.
On this issue, but if we're doing just a sign revision to the ordinance, that will require another joint public hearing,
Yes.
wouldn't it?
Yes, that'd be a totally separate issue.
Separate, okay, I just wanna make sure.
I got a question to the chair, to you, Jeff. Now, if we would just take that right out of that particular zone, those 12 people there, would it be easier, and could we move forward with it today? Or do we still have to?
I don't think we
No,
can.
today is just a
Because
hearing on the issue.
there was no public notice given for
Okay.
that change.
All right.
So we can't do that. We have to go through with this first, and then the next meeting, we could have that on the agenda.
Okay. Just to go back, on that particular property, if it wasn't being done, if the zoning didn't change for the sign, I think Denise could also, and we spoke about it, that she could actually widen out her driveway. She wouldn't have to have a bus stop. She could actually get a trailer, covered trailer, 10 by 10, and have it lettered and parked right by the road.
But how expensive would that be compared to a sign?
That's true. It would be. You're
There would
absolutely,
be no point in doing that.
Let's just-
That would be done.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, one way or another, she's gonna get a sign. You know, it may cost her more, but one way or the other, she's gonna get a sign, because we do wanna keep her as far as the businesses here in Winslow.
Just take the path of least resistance, just amend the zoning code, in my opinion.
I think it makes sense to make the low-density zoning change and for signs.
Yep.
And that's gonna take a little while. What you do in the interim period to promote your business, that's your business, and that's your business, and do whatever you have to do to keep your business and promote your business. But from a town perspective, we're gonna go through the right process, and we'll have to go through the planning board and the public hearing and that could be in April, so that's.
But to change the ordinance, we don't have to go through the zoning board, correct?
Yes.
Should-
to just change the ordinance to allow her to amend to have a sign of a certain size.
The
You don't
planning
need to
board
go
still
change
needs
the
to be
zoning.
weighing in on this.
Yeah, the
I
planning
don't
board
think
should,
that's an ordinance, that's part of the zoning code.
part of the zoning, so they
It
have
was
it.
an ordinance.
That-
She said it was
that-
zoning
that
change, it
sign-
has to go through the
that's a-
planning board.
That's a zoning thing that has to go to the planning board.
Yep.
They need to recommend
Yep.
or not recommend that.
No, tonight is just for the public hearing for the mixed use change.
Correct.
And the public will speak, anybody in the public can speak. When the public hearing is over, then this same thing goes to the planning board. And then the planning board acts on it and comes to us with a recommendation, whatever that recommendation may be.
And then it's up to you to
And then it's
decide
up to us to decide.
on this issue only.
Correct.
And then we will have another issue next month on a sign in the low-density residential area.
Correct.
And do that process again.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this?
Oh, my goodness.
Joel, you went up first.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, Chris.
So, I have only 3 minutes on this clock, but I have 5 minutes on my watch, so I will, just watch me, okay?
I don't think I'll need that long for what I have to say.
Perfect.
Joel Selwood, Augusta Road. So on the west side of Augusta Road, so I'm in mixed use, but, so as this proposal's come forward, I thought it wise to do a little research and find out what effect, if it has any, on me. So as I looked into it, I saw a lot of the things that you guys are discussing, that, yes, the ordinance doesn't allow for a sign for what she wants to do. But as I looked into what the ordinances are for signs, I think you gotta look a lot further than this sign, because there's a lot of problems with the signage in regards to how the zoning is in Winslow, from what I see. So those signs are permitted in mixed use, rural conservation, and the industrial districts. So if you've looked at the zoning map, okay, this is the low-density rural that we're talking about. There's the one green one that's, I think you were talking about, there was one district, okay? That's this green one, okay? So all this orange and brown is industrial, is the brown, and the orange is mixed use. The blue is rural conservation, okay? Signage is allowed in that whole district. You could put an electronic sign on the Shorey Road if you wanted. North Pond Road, South Pond Road, Maple Ridge. You could do it at all kinds of places, okay? So solving her problem is the tip of the iceberg here and what really needs to be looked at on the signing ordinances. Because I don't think anybody wants a big electronic sign out on the Shorey Road, okay? The neighbors probably wouldn't care for that much. I think going to what you were discussing earlier, I think is the route that you need to look at, is look at the whole ordinances for signage and decide what's appropriate for what districts. I think you don't have to change the zoning, I think, to get what she needs. I think that is much more complicated than at first blush, because you're thinking just the Augusta Road and 12 properties. Some of the properties that are on the Augusta Road go all the way around to Taylor. They touch Taylor, the whole thing. Okay, it goes all the way around, it's one piece of property on some of those. I looked it up on the tax maps, and it's also on the zoning map. So, and then you got all the abutters, you got a number of things that come into play, as Code Enforcement was talking about. I think it gets fairly complicated on that. So I think the signing ordinance is the way to go, and look at that and how it affects all the zones. Because I don't think the intent really is to allow an electronic sign, on the North Pond Road, or, Shore Road, or Knoll Road, or whatever. I don't think that fits the nature of the neighborhood, which is the point of zoning, to protect that and make sure that things fit into the zone that they're in. And I think the signage is, I read that and I could not believe that you could go out and have on parts of the Patty's Pond Road, you can have an electronic sign, and he could write a permit for that. So I think this needs to go a lot further than that. I think the zoning isn't really the way to go, in my opinion. at least to solve this problem. If there's a bigger issue as far as zoning, then that could be looked at, but then you're encompassing all of Taylor Avenue. It's not just right on the Augusta Road. So I would suggest going back and looking at the signing ordinances in regards to all the zoning districts to see what's appropriate, because I think the conservation district, maybe outside of the China Road, for example, you know, ought to have maybe more limited on what the signage is, that they're smaller, less obtrusive than, say, an electronic sign could be on a rural road somewhere that is allowed. So I think it needs a lot more homework on this. So I think that pretty much covers what I got. If somebody got some questions, I was looking into this, and the more I looked, the more I found. It's like, wow, that really needs more. I don't know how long it's existed this way, but it's pretty wide open, and Conservation District includes some of our most rural areas of the town, but has the least restrictions on signage. It didn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
I know my property's on conservation.
Yeah, but you're on China Road. It kind of makes sense. There's some signage light on there, and that might be, you know, some of these major routes, you know, some signage to a certain limitation, whatever lighting is appropriate for certain signs in certain districts, but to allow no signs in certain districts, and have a district like that where you can put, you know, a billboard on the Patty's Pond Road doesn't make a lot of sense. So.
Your 5 minutes is up, Joel. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Denise, go ahead.
Hi, Denise Whitman, 1266 Augusta Road, the start of this whole conversation. So I'm kind of mixed on both situations. I do believe that zoning can be beneficial for mixed use, just because I'm not even looking just for me. I want to help other businesses down the road as well that might end up in this boat. So I don't want to just look at something that could potentially help me and nobody else, because that's not who I am. So I can see it as a bonus in that favor to help in businesses down the road. And the other side of the ordinance side, I do think that it can be extremely beneficial with a sign change, because exactly like he was saying, I was looking and it's like, I could move my business to the Noah Road and put up my big sign and people would find it, even though we're in the middle of the nowhere, where it makes more sense to have the straightaway on the Augusta Road where most of our businesses are. Overall, I see that, or my opinion is with the ordinance that with the signage, it could just be, we could still have signage restricted, but have it where businesses that are certified with our town and legal with the state, like for me personally, I am a LLC company. So like businesses like us that we're paying business property taxes with our town, it makes sense that we should be able to have a sign. Like I know there's some home ones that could do, like, not against anybody that might do stuff like, but like Kohler Street, for example, like they sell them from their house. If they're certified with the town, then that would be a great example to be able to add it. But if they're not doing that and they're just a home little business or Mary Kay, stuff like that, I can understand like limiting the signs. Overall, I think that having the ability to change either the signage ordinance or the zoning would just make it so there's more fairness for businesses in our town. We don't want to scare people away from coming to our town to bring their businesses. Or like me, because like I've literally been looking everywhere. I'm like, do I stay with the town? I keep fighting this where months out, because I thought it was an easy, let me put up my sign. I got it professionally done so it looked good and not look like a sloppy business. So I'm like looking at the different paths, and I was like, I'd really hate to leave my town when we are blowing up, and I'd rather keep the profit within our town. I'd rather stay with the town than go elsewhere, but I definitely have to think of my business long term.
Can I ask what business?
Yeah, I have a party and tent rental company. So we do tables, chairs, tents, and we do a lot of stuff off-site, but we also have a lot of people that come to us, and then we've gotten a lot of disgruntled customers. We've been in business 4 years now, and the biggest complaint I get is we can't find your property, and they'll go past us because even though we are on a hill, it's set so far back for where our property is that even if people try to look up to I'm like, find the blue garage, they can't find it because we're just set so back. And we're at the bottom of a hill, so it's dangerous because the speed on the Augusta Road, being the 50, and then trying to find it. It's just, I'm waiting for the accidents to happen. We have an accident almost every year there because of bad weather in general, not even counting the people looking. So, and like Chris was saying about the trees, I got a quote. It is $13,000 to clear those trees off to go to my garage. And that's definitely unrealistic to keep my business there for $13,000. And I'm willing to do the culvert, but then, or the end of the driveway with the landfill. But then we have to have a special company come in because it has the water pipelines to a creek. So then we have to have that type of septic or water drainage done so that it's safe and doesn't block the water drainage down the Augusta Road as well. So it's very pricey.
I have a question through the chair.
Yeah.
How big is the sign that you had made up?
The one that we had done is a 4 by 6 foot metal one that's on 4 by 4 posts because the DOT said we needed some that were breakable. So if somebody did hit it, then it'd be safe or
Safer
safer.
than, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe that's something we might want to consider as far as the size of the sign, where she's already have one made up. Would you pay for that, if you don't mind asking?
$900. I thought I was going to be setting it up. I didn't realize. I was just calling to make sure I was set back enough. I didn't realize there was restrictions until
So
after I paid
this
for it.
sign here, you put some time into it and you had it done professionally. So it's
Correct.
going to be a good-looking sign. It's not going to be something that's going to be off barn boards and having some paint on.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Gary Owen, I'm with the planning board, I'm the chair. We've had a lot of discussion internally as far as myself and a few other folks about what we're doing here or what we're trying to do. Obviously, we support business. We want to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity. The problem with the zoning change is that it's a low-density residential area, and in the comprehensive plan, it is brought forward as the following. The low-density residential district is shown in the dark green area on table 7. That's that entire area, not just the 12 lots we're talking about. The purpose of the district is to provide locations for new single-family residential housing in rural settings adjacent to existing built-up areas of the town. We've done a lot of changes along Augusta Road. We've added mixed use along that, but it's primarily a commercial use in many of those areas. Out there, it's not a commercial use, especially when you turn down Taylor Road. Okay, so Taylor Road is part of this triangle, if you will. Going on, I gotta put my glasses on so I can read it. Okay, so the area was established to attract the area, meaning the mixed-use area, well, I'm sorry, the low-density area was established to attract new home construction that otherwise would be more in the more rural area, yet still close to the town center. Agriculture, forestry, similar resource-based activities are encouraged in that area. That low-density area, however, allows some commercial services and municipal uses and are allowed in this district as well, provided that they blend with the primary land use, which is residential. So in order to, if you go ahead and change just a portion of that to mixed use, you're encouraging businesses to move into an area that's been designated as a residential area, to be used as residential areas. So the discussion that we've just had leads me to think that the signage thing is much easier to deal with than it would be to change just 12 lots in that area going down Taylor Road as well as Augusta Road. What I would expect is
as has been suggested, a discussion and a thought process to try to figure out how to deal with the signage and not deal with changing the low density to mixed use in this particular case. I think that the comprehensive plan lays it out quite well, and we're in the process of being at a point where we're going to have a comprehensive plan adopted over the next month or two that includes all of this and many more other changes, little changes, to bring it into code or into compliance with the state. All this stuff is controlled by the state. It comes down to us, and we have to, combine the best resources that we have to get us a good answer for this. I would suggest that the town council table this or vote to go another direction. You've had your public hearing. You've got a position where now you've got both sides of the story open. But I certainly would not encourage changing that to mixed use at this point in time, given what the plan and the arrangement would be. And it would be a heck of a lot easier to make exceptions, I would think, to a signage thing and not have it moved to the planning board with an up or down vote at this point. If you vote to change the zone, it'll come to us, and us meaning the planning board. And if right now you've got it, you don't have a motion to do this, you've got a public hearing to do this. Then you decide which way you want to go.
Gary, we can't take a vote on this tonight. This is only for a public hearing.
But you've got,
That's it.
if it is a public
Then it goes back
hearing.
to you,
It
and you
is,
come to us
but
with a recommendation.
It doesn't come to us until you send it to us. We've had no activity, no information from the council, no information from anyone else on the planning board. I'm standing up here out of context with you to try to explain what the thought process is. If you act on changing this now or sending it to us, we're gonna have the same discussion and probably have to have another public hearing because we've opened up that possibility of those changes. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, Gary, but like I said, for the third time now for tonight, I think, we can't vote on this tonight. Either way.
Right, so you're saying that you're gonna send this to the planning board for our approval or our disapproval, and we don't even have anything yet other than what's been done on,
Well, I don't know what that earlier process was and what you have or not, but as
Well,
far as the council and the procedure goes,
yeah,
we don't vote on it tonight because it's a public hearing.
right.
It goes back to you, and if you need more information to make a decision, that's up, I would assume, with you, code officer, and the,
I think,
Denise.
I think the code officer put it very, very well. He explained the options, and to me, for you to send it to us to determine whether or not there should be a zoning change, you need to make a motion to do that, or it would seem to me that would be something that the council would have to say, okay, we want to look at this and have you either approve or disapprove a zoning change of the type that you've asked for.
Say, Gary, like, I'm not in favor of changing it to mixed use after hearing everything tonight. I think you're right, changing it to mixed use would be a mistake.
Yeah.
Keeping it as low-density residential would be the way to go, but amending the sign ordinance for that thing.
Right.
Would we send that, so if we decide that's the way we want to go, would we send that to you for consideration
yes.
tonight if we could?
If you can come up with a solution with some, you have to get information as to what would be acceptable. What you've got on the table right now is for you to send us, or, vote to send it to the planning board for a zoning change. That's it.
Yeah, but we don't,
But-
I don't want that. But
I
I
know.
do want an amendment to the low-density residential. Wouldn't that be in your scope to
Well-
say, we look like for signage? Wouldn't that be then your determine what appropriate for the low-density
But that's
residential
not
would be?
what, that's not what's on your agenda.
I
and that's-
understand that.
And that's not
I-
what was, what the notice went out for. So
I
you can't-
understand that, but
okay, right,
I think we're gonna have that discussion in a few minutes.
Okay, but
To
just.
send that to you,
Right.
or a sign change in the, for the low, and then we need to have a public hearing, right?
If we're gonna change this, the low-density residentials and being able to have signs in that district, we need to have a public hearing first, and we need to notice everyone in the low-density area. At that point, then you can say, we refer this to the planning board
For
for
recommendation.
recommendation
Okay.
only.
Right.
So the next move through the chair again is for a public hearing at the,
At the April 8th.
April 8th meeting.
Right.
Correct.
And then, given that discussion, to bring it down to you for
Right. So-
determination at that point.
That is going to create an issue if you do it zone-wide, in that low-density zone. You are going to have to consider the whole zone if you're gonna change the signage requirements. So it's gonna take some thought and some understanding as to how you want to approach that.
Well, right,
Definitely needs to not be rushed and thought over well in the next.
Well, the issue at hand is what we're here for the public hearing
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah, okay,
Okay?
okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay.
Okay.
Mark Link, District 5. What's a Taylor Road classified as? We have commercial business out there,
Low-density residential.
okay? So the commercial on the Augusta Road is the same thing, and they can't have a sign? But they can have a sign on the Taylor Road?
I can answer that for you, Mark. That's grandfathered from when,
I'm grandfathered too, so. I mean, I don't know where you don't come from, but.
those commercial properties on Taylor Road are grandfathered. That used to be industrial. When they changed, Gary probably knows when they changed the zoning on it years ago. But there's 2 or 3 businesses there that were grandfathered. From years ago, it used to be industrial out there or something.
Because those were built
whatever it
before 2008, right, Gary?
Well, that's when the comp plan was done last, but I think the changes were taken a little after that. So, since the last comprehensive plan.
So it's basically a war to fight the change, to make it accommodating for people to have business in this town. That's what we're trying to do, which is sad. Sad that we can't get there. We'll get there.
I'm trying to.
Anyone else on the public hearing? No one else? We'll close the public hearing.
Okay, on to discussion items. The KV cap transportation, Fran, you asked that to be on the agenda.
I did. I wanted to follow up on the last meeting where it came up that we were going to table it till this meeting. For anyone that isn't aware of what it is, it's, KV Cap used to do transportation years ago, stopped because there was not enough interest in it. I think what was odd to me was if senior citizens needed a ride, they had to go to a location to get picked up. So if they need a ride, I don't know how they thought they were gonna get to a location to get picked up. So this one, if I understand it right, Ella's saying that now, if we approve it, the senior citizens can call from their homes and get picked up from their homes and brought to where they need to go, which I think is great. I think that senior citizens are so kept silent that it's time
Could I get a
that
point of
we-
order, please? We have conversation going on.
Point of order?
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's time that we start recognizing all that the senior citizens have done and currently do for this town. And if we have to pay between the 5,000 and 10,000, as Ella said, I think they need to get to get that service. It's very important, and I think it will do well. And if they only have to pay $3, if that's the cost, for a ride, I do want to know, was that both ways or just one way? And then the distance they'd be allowed to go, sort of thing.
So this is a brand-new program, started up in January. I am completely in your camp on this, Fran. I think that communities have to have some type of transportation program for seniors who have lost their driver's license due to age. And this sounds like a program that's viable. The way it works is that somebody who wants to go to Hannaford or wherever, they would call the day before and arrange for pickup. That person would be picked up and dropped off. The town, as you said, the commitment is between $5,000 and $10,000, and the fare that they would pay, I think, and I'll verify this, is $3 round trip. I don't think it's $3 each way. But the only question I have on that, if the council chooses to go and adopt this, I think it might be better to put it in the budget process instead of trying to do it right now, because we'd have to transfer funds out of it. And the other thing is, we're gonna only have a partial part of the year, so I don't know where that's gonna fit in with them. I could certainly follow up on it to get a little bit more detail, but that's open for a council discussion, and I think it's a great idea.
Don't mean to interrupt, but would you mind talking to KV Cap?
Absolutely.
And seeing they started in January, we're already into March, do a prorated for this year, maybe.
Yep. I will give them a call.
I mean,
No question, no question.
I
Fran,
mean,
and
we have the money, we can,
no question.
take
I
from
mean,
someplace.
I wouldn't wait a year. If we have to take it out of surplus, we'll take it out of surplus.
Good.
We'll approve that just as quick as you can get this done. I think it's a great thing. I think it just needs to be done. It's almost like we
it's a
can't wait.
necessity.
Yeah, it's like.
It's a,
Through the chair.
And they're worth it,
For what they're gonna get.
definitely.
Through the chair, if I may, I'd even like to take it a little further, and, I mean, how many possible trips could there be? And I don't see why the town can't absorb even that fare, even if it's a reimbursement type from the residents.
yeah, I don't know how that would work, Lee. That would be a conversation with KV Cap. I don't know about the logistics on that. We could probably put some money aside, but let me dig into it and find out some of these questions. And
Right. I don't see it being, $5,000 worth of fares
Right.
in 1 year.
Right.
And we're only talking $3, $5 for.
Well, you gotta remember, it's not just for senior citizens. This is for
Right,
all of our
I'm aware of that.
citizens. And so if we find out they're gonna get a free ride, and they're 22 years old, we may end up seeing that going through the roof a little, especially that word of mouth will spread that. I mean, we're trying to do this for the seniors, and this is
Right.
for everybody. It's $5 for somebody who's not considered a senior citizen, and $3 for our seniors.
And I would ask KV Cap if there's a way that, to cut down on the teenagers and everyone else and they, then keep the price at the $5, but for the senior citizens, try to get that as low, even lower than $3.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Let me chat with them and find out. If I can, I just want to share my thoughts. This is probably one of the most respectful council meetings that I've attended for years, and I really appreciate the professionalism that I'm seeing here with the council. You guys are rocking it, seriously, rocking it.
Anything else on that, Fran?
No, I'm good, thank you
Anybody
so
else?
much.
I'm good.
Okay,
The chair.
Question?
yes, sir.
Hi, Jacob Runway. I live on Payne Street. Rather than in the long term, rather than having money get spent on KV Cap, taking seniors to grocery stores, I think it might be a good idea to basically flip how that works and allow for our zoning code to make it easier to build grocery stores near where seniors already live. That way we can get a stronger tax base from having grocery stores in our towns, while still enabling our seniors to be able to walk to the grocery store without having to own a car or wait on KV Cap. That would improve their independence, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Andrew?
Okay, on to public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak for 3 minutes?
Me?
Oh.
Louis
hold
Bourgeois.
on. They're right. See, you
It's not
guys,
gonna
you
take
keep,
me long.
hold on one second. I do need to read my public statement. Thank you, Adam. Bear with me.
Yeah.
Any person wishing to verbally address the council on any matter before it may do so, providing permission first obtained by the council chair. Each person addressing the council shall stand and give the person's name and address in an audible tone of voice for the record, and shall limit remarks to the time allotted by the council chair. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. No person other than council and the person having the floor shall be permitted to enter into any discussion, either directly or through a councillor, without the permission of the council chair. No question shall be asked a councillor except through the council chair. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who shall become boisterous while addressing the council, shall be forthwith by the council chair barred from any further audience before the council, unless permission to continue be granted by the majority vote of the council. Okay, now you're good to go.
What's that?
Here, I think so.
Louis Bourgeois, I live on the Abbott Road. The thing with the park being destroyed the way it is and the bandstand, is that gotta be ripped down and rebuilt, the whole thing? Well, wouldn't it make more sense to buy one of these stages that folds up and get it out of there?
Through the chair. So that's certainly something we're discussing.
You are, okay.
But the problem is FEMA won't pay for that. So, and these things are probably $60,000-$70,000 because we're gonna have a roof over it. But that's certainly a possibility. It's gonna take some fundraising on our end to come up with that kind of capital. So, I mean, we even talked about rebuilding the existing stage down there if it was possible, and Councilman Karen actually had somebody go down and look at it, and it doesn't look like that's feasible because it's been so rippled up.
I just think it'd be a shame to do it every other year.
I know, I agree with you 100%. If we design it though, and we put it in the same location, I think we're gonna have to look at raising it off the ground so the water actually goes underneath it.
Sure.
With a concrete foundation.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem, Louis, with that stage is when the water came, from north to south in the river, that changing area in the back, it acted just like a sail. And when the water hit that, it just was such a force.
I'm sure.
If that would have been open, I think we wouldn't have had the damage. If that, would have been, so the water could have gone underneath and then over the stage and through the back of the stage, we wouldn't have had half the damage that we would have had. And those are all things that we're looking at right now.
I think it's a great idea to have that down there, but I'd hate to see it destroyed every.
Our times have changed, that's for sure. I think we're gonna be dealing with this year after year,
Thank you.
unfortunately.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay. No one else?
Motion to adjourn?
We'll have a second.
Second.
Whoa, who motioned to adjourn?
Dale.